From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Methane gas from a lake in Rwanda may soon become a major source of energy. Millions of people in that African country could use the electricity. The Rwandan government and an American company signed a power agreement in August at the U.S.-Africa Summit in Washington, D.C. The company is Symbian Power. The deal will provide electricity and lower the risk of an environmental disaster at Rwanda's Lake Kivu. 3 lakes in Africa have such high levels of carbon dioxide and methane gas that they are at risk of exploding. 2 of them in Cameroon exploded in the 1980s. In one explosion, the release of carbon dioxide killed more than 1,700 people. An eruption at Lake Kivu could cause even more deaths. More than 2 million people live near the lake, mostly in the cities of Goma and Gisenyi. Paul Hinks is the head of Symbian Power. His company has agreed to build a power station at Lake Kivu. Mr. Hinks says it is important that the methane be removed from the lake before a disaster happens. He says this is a time when a safety problem can be turned into something good, providing electricity. Some experts say the Mount Nyiragongo volcano near Goma creates a special risk. They say a volcanic explosion could cause the lake to erupt. Mount Nyiragongo has erupted several times in the past. Scientists agree that the methane levels must be lowered in Lake Kivu. But pumping processes can also lead to gas releases. Mr. Hinks says Symbian Power will work to remove the gas safely. He says the company already has experience working in difficult places. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. The debt crisis in Greece has gained the world's attention. However, some activists say many other countries are building up dangerous debt levels. They say private investors are lending money to those countries without enough rules or legal safeguards. Debt activists say there is the possibility of a debt crisis in other countries, especially developing ones. Tim Jones is with a British group called the Jubilee Debt Campaign. It studies debt owed by countries around the world. This July, the group released a report on the debt trap. Mr. Jones says an increase in lending to poor countries is a problem. He warns that unless action is taken, some could end up in a new debt crisis. Mozambique is among the countries the report describes as facing a possible debt crisis. The economy has been booming, Mr. Jones said. There has been a huge amount of lending to the country, but the poverty rate is increasing too. The Jubilee Debt Campaign says the total amount owed by debtor countries rose 30% from 2011 to 2014 to $13.8 trillion. The group says 22 countries are now in a debt crisis. Many more face a high risk of financial problems. Some experts tie the current debt problems to the financial crisis of late 2007 and 2008. Some countries have struggled with debt for 20 years or more. Jamaica is one example. Debt campaigners are calling for tighter controls of lending and canceling some loans for countries in crisis. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. A group of international aid, religious, and other groups is calling for debt cancellation for Nepal. The country is struggling with the effects of a powerful earthquake on April 25th that struck the central part of the country near the capital, Kathmandu. More than 8,000 people died in the quake. The United Nations says 8 million people, more than 1/4 of the country's population, have been affected by the disaster. Jubilee Network USA is a coalition of religious and aid groups that works to end extreme poverty. The group, a non-governmental organization, or NGO, says Nepal owes a total of $3.8 billion to foreign creditors, including the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. The coalition's executive director, Eric Lecomte, says Nepal was repaying $220 million a year to international lenders before the quake. He says money to repay Nepal's debt should go to repair, rebuild, and help the nation recover. Mr. Lecomte says international lenders have canceled millions of dollars in debt owed by the West African nations hit hard by the Ebola crisis. He says he believes the debt relief programs should come with requirements for greater openness and accountability. He says that means the money that would have gone to repayment goes to the citizens who need it most, instead of tax breaks for companies or the military. The International Monetary Fund's Jerry Rice says the agency will send experts to study Nepal's needs as soon as the humanitarian situation subsides. However, another deadly earthquake of magnitude 7.3 struck Nepal on May 12th. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. The world is getting older. As more people retire each year, fewer working-age people will be there to replace them. This has effects not only in the workplace, but in the world of finance. The bond rating agency Moody's says the aging population will lead to a drop in household savings. This could mean that total investments will fall and economic growth could slow. Some reports have described Japan, Italy, and Germany as the world's super aged nations. That is the name for countries in which at least 20% of the population is at least 65 years old. Elena Dugar is head of Moody's Sovereign Risk Division. She says changes in many populations are taking place quickly. In 5 years, 6 more countries will join the list of super-aged nations, and 34 nations will be super-aged by the year 2030. Elena Dugar says this will have a big influence on labor and savings. Kishore Kulkarni is with the Metropolitan State University of Denver. He says immigration is one way to reduce the effects of an aging population. Older adults spend money differently than younger ones, and experts say the difference affects the economies of countries. But Kishore Kulkarni believes that specialized career training and productivity gains from technology could make up for the drop in the number of workers. He also says that an aging population will be less of a problem in countries where older people are highly valued. And most experts agree that young workers will have to work longer and retire later than today's older workers. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. In Manila and other cities in Asia, people are building office and apartment buildings. But building roads, railways, and other important infrastructure has been slower, partly because of the 1997 financial crisis. After that crisis, developing Asian countries reduced the amount they spend on infrastructure. In May, Philippines President Benigno Aquino III approved $1.4 billion in spending for commuter trains in Manila and other projects. That brought the total for infrastructure investment to $31.8 billion since 2010. In India, the biggest program is the $100 billion Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor project. It will create 7 industrial cities, high-speed railways, 6 airports, and 3 seaports. The government says India also needs 450 new coal power plants. In Vietnam, the government approved plans for a new airport near Ho Chi Minh City. It will cost $15.8 billion. Vietnam also plans to spend $22.5 billion on new highways. The demand for power in that country increases by 10% every year. State media say Vietnam needs to spend $125 billion in the next 20 years to keep up with the demand. Thailand has a $92 billion building plan for the next few years. The plan includes high-speed train routes that will run from China in the north through Malaysia and Singapore to the south. It calls for expanding seaports and commuter trains in Bangkok. The Asian Development Bank has estimated that developing Asian economies need to invest $8 trillion by 2020. For VOA, learning English. I'm Jonathan Evans.